Godzilla history is full of awesome, curious, and downright weird monsters. Throughout the decades, the franchise has introduced dozens of these characters to audiences around the world, creating the world of kaiju. There is no denying that the recent MonsterVerse movies, and yes, even Godzilla 1998, have created entire new segments of monster fans that are just getting into the deep lore and history of the Godzilla franchise. So we thought, why not help some of these new fans with learning the monsters of Godzilla's past? This is the beginning of every monster in Godzilla history, starting where it all began, the Showa era. If the idea of a complete list of every single monster ever in Godzilla history excites you, make sure to like and subscribe, and feel free to let us know your favorite monster from this era down below. So let's not waste any more time, let's get to it! Just a quick heads up, I'll be leaving out a few of the monsters and creatures that aren't quite up to the epic kaiju standards of the rest of the list, just to streamline the video a bit. You know and love him, the Big G-Man. We could go on for days about the king of the monsters, but since you already know plenty about him, let's move on to the next monster and first ever to star beside Godzilla in a movie, Anguirus. Originally Godzilla's nemesis, Anguirus has gone on to become a fan favorite and the closest thing to an ally for Godzilla other than Mothra. Anguirus is my dad's favorite monster. He used to always pick him in the Destroy All the Monsters game, and got pretty dang good with him. Newer fans can even see an Easter egg appearance from Anguirus in the recent Godzilla King of the Monsters movie, where upon detonating the bomb in order to heal Godzilla, you can actually see the skeletal remains of Anguirus blown away from the blast. Godzilla vs. Kong is set to release eventually, but King Kong vs. Godzilla took place a very long time ago. King Kong has shown up to face off with Godzilla once before, and if you haven't seen the movie but eagerly await Legendary's version of this epic clash, go check it out. Just don't go in there expecting to see a masterpiece, it's a bit of a comedy, I think. Fans fell in love with Mothra's beauty in King of the Monsters, but the Queen of the Monsters has been around since nearly the beginning of the franchise. Godzilla and Mothra actually started out as rivals and had an epic battle that is very much different than we usually get with the two outside of a couple lone instances. Mothra was even a villain monster in her standalone film back in the day. The Showa era introduced the Mothra larva as well and even made the infants quite capable fighters, and they handed an early defeat to Godzilla. The villain in King of the Monsters first appeared in the Showa era. King Ghidorah may just be Godzilla's most heated rival and greatest opponent due to the length of time that they've been fighting each other. Crazy thing is, we almost got a much different version of this monster back then. Instead of the iconic gold coloration, Ghidorah was almost colored to look like a rainbow of vibrant colors. I think they made the right choice with the gold. What do you think? The last kaiju you may recognize from King of the Monsters on this list is Rodan, the fire demon. Rodan has basically played the same role in his 60-year existence, the chaotic neutral character, simply out for his own welfare. What you might not know though is that there was a standalone Rodan film that had two of these flying creatures awakening and disrupting mankind. This movie is one of my favorite kaiju films of all time, and I highly recommend you go give it a shot. Not all of the Godzilla monsters are all that threatening, example being Eberra here. This giant crustacean proved to be a decent challenge for Godzilla, but there is a reason why this monster is one of the more less known kaiju. The design was just not all that exciting, it was just a giant lobster thing at the end of the day, but don't let me stop you from liking the monster if you do. Godzilla had a son. Biological or not, most people are still wondering. Manila was an attempt by Toho to bring Godzilla in closer with young children and to make him less of a ruthless monster, I guess you could say. Giving the G-Man a son, audiences could see him care, protect, and nurture Manila. Questionable design choice or not, I can respect that. If you aren't a fan of bugs, then these next two monsters will not be your favorites. Kamacuras and Kumonga were insect-inspired kaiju that appeared during the Showa era. And although they were not the strongest or most memorable of his opponents, viewers could relate to these monsters because we can see their design in real-life insects all around the world right now. One of the more cute kaiju introduced during the Showa timeline was Baragon. Floppy ears, big puppy dog eyes, Baragon quickly became loved by fans for its more warm and cuddly appearance and never quit attitude. Gorosaurus is one of the more simply designed kaiju from the Showa era, resembling a giant T-Rex according to science during that time at least. This is one of the more lesser known kaiju out there due to its brief appearances in the franchise as well as not having many memorable qualities, but I have learned to respect this kaiju and like to almost root for him when he does show up. The sea dragon Manda appeared during the Showa period and finally gave audiences a monster that took a lot of inspiration from the classic Easter dragon designs, being very serpent-like. This monster didn't have all that much screen time and many people probably don't recognize Manda at first, but the serpent-like body gave this kaiju a special place in the standings of Godzilla monsters. Then we have Varan, a monster that only appeared in one Godzilla movie along with its own standalone movie prior to that. Varan has become more known due to the amount of cancelled film projects than its actual time on screen, but I guess that works as fans still discuss this kaiju often. The next monster, Gabera, was created with bullies in mind, attacking Manila, Godzilla's son, because the young monster was too small to stand up for himself. Luckily, Godzilla came to teach this monster a lesson: don't be a prick. If there was ever a monster to help us humans understand the error of our polluting ways, it would be Hedorah. The smog monster was able to be maintained and destroyed by Godzilla with the help of humanity, but the threat always remained of its return. One of the most popular Godzilla monsters of all time, Geigen was introduced during the Showa era and quickly became a huge hit due to his razor arms and savage brutality. This cyborg kaiju was an alien-made weapon created in hopes of defeating Godzilla and the rest of Earth's guardians. There was some concept art for the King of the Monsters that showed what looked like a new and improved version of Geigen, but this was simply a piece of concept art and never came to fruition. Then you have Jet Jaguar, the most human-like of really any kaiju that have ever appeared in a Godzilla movie. This advanced robot was created by mankind but soon reprogrammed itself and became self-aware. Jet Jaguar has gone on to be confused with a very similar cinema icon, Ultraman. The similarities are very clear and you can see how people could easily get the two mixed up. If Geigen had blades for arms, then Megalon had to have drills. This interesting monster only appeared in one movie, but still is one of the more popular kaiju due to its arms having giant drills on them which aided the monster in digging tunnels, as it originated from an underground civilization. Many Godzilla games and other sources of media still use this monster as a highlight in the world of kaiju. There are hints that we may be getting more of this next monster in the very near future, but Mechagodzilla first showed up during the Showa era and gave Godzilla one hell of a battle. There is no denying the massive legacy this monster has gone on to have, literally a walking weapon of death. Mechagodzilla is one of the few monsters who gave Godzilla all he could handle, and the big guy routinely needed help to defeat this robotic kaiju. King Caesar appeared during the Showa era. This monster was an ancient guardian of the royal family of Okinawa. One of the last monsters of the Showa era, Caesar was the last monster to fight side by side with the G-Man from this era as they fought together against Mechagodzilla. Not much is known about this kaiju, but its wacky design will always bring up debate in the Godzilla fandom. The last monster to appear in the Showa period, Titanosaurus, was Mechagodzilla's sidekick in its battle against the true Godzilla. This monster alone was no match for Godzilla, but when fighting with Mechagodzilla, they became a formidable duo and caused a lot of trouble. And that ends our list of every single monster from the Showa period in Godzilla history. This era of time introduced the most monsters in this series and was the reason why any of us have Godzilla movies to even talk about in the first place. I hope you liked the video, and if you want to see all the monsters from the Heisei period, let us know down below and share this video around to get the algorithm all fired up. Thank you all for your time in Dangerville. This has been Jacob, and I'll see you next time.